Ha ha. I'm just imitating you, like ha. Did you like go through puberty or something? He's probably gonna put it probably before the intro too. That prick.
He does that all the time.
I know.
Terrible.
Just in case he doesn't. Hi, I'm Chuck Carlo.
And I'm Felicia.
And this is our review of
Kings of Artifice. And Tony the Tiger's grandfather is a king. In Kings of Artifice, players control mythical races exploring, building, and ultimately having the strongest foothold over a newly discovered, bountiful island. In the box you'll find 200 colored blocks of 4 colors, 50 for each race, 10 scoring cards, 10 spell cards, 1 Thief's Kitty card, 1 round marker, 4 summary sheets for quick and easy reference, 4 scoring markers, 1 for each race, 4 mana tokens, 4 ship pawns, 1 for each race as well, 4 wasteland tiles, 24 tree tokens, and of course the rulebook. Have the most victory points at the end game to be crowned King of Artifice.
Here's how to set up. Choose a side of the board that matches the number of players you are and place in the middle of the table. In a 2-player game, you'll need to place the wasteland tiles onto the 4 corners of the island. Shuffle the scoring cards and reveal the top 2, placing the rest back in the box. Do the same for the spell cards. For advanced gameplay, you can reveal 3 cards. Place the Thief's Kitty card face up as well. Now each player will choose one of the races they want to play: the feline Saidwir, the human Thons, the slug-kind Vels, or the undead Domons. Place each scoring marker on 0. Players then collect all their race-colored blocks, having each 9 characters, 40 colored building blocks, and 1 fountain block. They then collect the 5 action points token, the mana token, a summary card, their ship pawn, and tree tokens, which will be allocated depending on the number of players you are. The first player receives the round marker, placing it in front of him with a hammer side showing. He'll be the first player for the entire game. Now each player, starting with the first and proceeding clockwise, places a tree token from this supply onto the development space on the board. The added token must be adjoining a forest land space or another tree token. And lastly, each player chooses a quadrant on the board and places his ship in the sea space loaded with the king. You're now ready to play.
The game is split into 2 rounds. The building round, which is the bulk of the game, and the crowning round. The building round is always done in this order. Check the Thief's Kitty. If your AP token is there, return it to your pool. Check spell cards. If your mana token is there, return it to your pool. Flip all of your AP tokens to their active side. Perform actions which we'll get into very shortly. And lastly, pass play to the next player.
Alright, let's talk about performing actions. Actions can be played in any order. They range from summoning characters, moving characters, building structures, move ships to new quadrants, cast spells, and using characters' unique abilities. Summoning works by activating the king's ability. Spending 2 AP tokens, the newly summoned character must be placed in an adjacent space by the king. Note that the king is not allowed to summon from the ship. Villagers and horse may be summoned as a pair. To move a character, a player may spend 1 AP to move the character number of spaces denoted on the character's summary sheet. All characters, except horses, can be moved more than once per turn. Building structures is another very important aspect of the game. To do so, a player activates their characters to build buildings using their colored blocks from the pool. Players score immediate victory points when completion of said structure is done. But to get the bigger and better structures, a player will have to summon a character with the know-how of the architectural design. Anyone can build walls, but only specific characters can build specific structures. These are listed on the character summary card for whom can build what. A couple of things to remember is the scorecards you randomly selected for the game. These will give you bonus points at the end of the game, and pastures as well can give you massive amount of points at the end of the game, should you meet their requirements. Building structures will give you immediate VPs as well as final scoring VPs. The structures and scoring is also listed at the back of the rulebook.
Of course, you can't just become the King of Artifice without a little conquest and undermining other players' efforts. Too far, you say? Not if you summoned horses, which can carry one of your characters 4 spaces instead of 2. Another way to undermine that pesky, ever-expanding player is to slow him down on his track with the thief and steal one of that player's action token. Send him in next to one of that player's characters and you can steal the AP token with the money bag on it. Place it in your supply as inactive, and next turn you'll have more AP and the victimized player will have one less. When one player exhausted his entire supply of 40 blocks and every other player has 10 or less blocks, or 2 players used up their entire blocks, the game moves to the crowning round. Flip over starting player token from the building side to its crowning side. Everybody finishes their building round, and when we get back to the first player, players will have one final round with some restriction. A player cannot build any more in this final round, but can move their characters around as normal to get into the best scoring positions and or throw AP tokens into the fountain for 2 VP each using the Artisan. When all is done, players calculate their VP and the player with the most is crowned King of Artifice.
King of Artifice is mainly a building game. Players best devise their strategy to race and build the structures as best that they see fit. There are some steps though that must be done to get the best results, and that's to first build your villagers and horses. So there's a sort of mantra to the game that must be followed. And yes, there's some warring elements with the knight, thief, and sometimes warlock, depending on what spells are available for each game. But in our experience, it felt as though that if you concentrated on military, whilst the others that minded their own business steamrolled ahead. That being said, eventually, when your empire expands to the middle in a 4-player game, then all bets are off, and that's when a military involvement is necessary. So the game does offer many choices, but really the choices are kind of predetermined for the best course of action through the scorecards and the types of units that need to be summoned. The game components are good. They give you Ziploc bags for all of them, which is always a plus. Although sticking the stickers to the blocks, and if you have slight OCD complex like myself, getting them to stick just right will be time consuming. Speaking of cute, the artwork may fool you that it's a kid's game, but don't be fooled by that. The learning curve is pretty high in the sense that you need to remember what unit does what and who needs to be with the artisan to build with structure, but the summary cards really help in that department. The rulebook is clear and concise, and it even has a little history of the races you'll find in Kings of Artifice. It's not a bad game, but it's not a great game. It left us with a lukewarm feel to it. We're giving Kings of Artifice a 7 out of 10.